Welcome to episode 4 of the Boot Nerds podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by our good friends at C6 Agility, who make, in my opinion, the best shin guards in the world. I don't know what you think, Jay.
I totally agree. I mean, it was a pretty easy decision, right? I don't know for how long I've been plugging C6 as the best shin guards out there by a country mile. I can fully get behind that message. They're so good, it's not even fair. Basically, I think we tried driving it over it with a small car, and it held up. So it's just, for me, it's just nice to have a pair of shin pads that makes me feel 100% comfortable. I mean, comfortable and confident, because, they're never going to snap, I feel, when I go into a tackle. And, with these plastic shin guards you can get these days for like, what, $40? They protect you, but still you have the sensation that if you get into trouble, they're going to snap. And so is your leg. With these guys, I don't care. I just fly into tackles, and I'm not really a guy to do that normally.
I think the cool part, and we do so many product reviews, it's always like a give and take type situation with every product, where if you want it to be thin and light, you give up the protection. Or if you want the protection, you lose the lightweight, thin feel. This is like the most uncompromised product I think I've ever come across, where it's legitimately the thinnest and lightest, but also the most protective. They're expensive. Don't get me wrong. But
very.
It's and I've said this before, you'll probably agree with me, it's the last pair of shin guards you'll ever need to buy.
Yes.
It's really that simple. So they're available at c6agility.com. It'll be linked down below in the description. Just go to the website if you're an audio listener. And if you use coupon code BOOTNERDS at checkout, you'll get 10% off your order on their top-of-the-line shin guard that I have right here. Handmade in the USA, aerospace grade carbon fiber. It's actually one of those products that's pretty ridiculous. You get it in your hand, it's thinner than a penny, but somehow like impossibly strong. But definitely worth checking out. Boot Nerds, coupon code, go ahead and check it out. First link down below. And that's pretty much it.
Sounds good.
Cool?
Should we jump in to one of our regular segments, the Q&A then?
Okay, so yeah, we'll do that. But if you guys do have any questions for the next episode, we do a Q&A in every single podcast now. Leave your questions down below in the comments, and we'll kind of sort through and pick out the best ones and answer them in the next episode.
Exactly, and the best ones that we selected from episode 3 are going to come right now. So if you asked a question, well, fingers crossed that it's in there. Because we're going to start out with Jack Timpson. Why isn't many big stars wearing Tiempos anymore? Attacking players 10 years ago, like Ronaldinho, Totti, etc., used to be the main players who wore them, whereas many skillful players wear them these days. Not many skillful players wear them these days. What reason do you think why this is? Or is it just the Tiempo isn't as big anymore?
I think it mostly has to do with the marketing at this point. I feel like they've really tried to market the Tiempo as more of a defender's boot, and they're going to pay more defenders to wear Tiempos. Mm-hmm. I also think that you have to look at the generation of players that are playing now. A lot of them grew up using synthetics, so I don't think it should be too surprising that a lot of the attacking players tend to, I guess, gravitate towards Mercurials or the X's or some of the thinner, lighter boots out there. I think it goes to show the power of the marketing and how it not only influences us as consumers, but can legitimately influences the pros' personal preference as well.
I think you're absolutely right here, and especially since synthetic boots have gotten so much better over the years. I mean, back in the days when it was Ronaldinho and Totti and all the other guys, offensive players wearing these boots. I mean, back then we still had the Vapor 1s and the Vapor 2s around that weren't necessarily the most comfortable boots in the world. So the Tiempo was kind of the comfort option to go to. It was relatively light back then. And it gave you a little bit of everything. I remember the first Air Tiempos, they were, are still great boots. So I think that played a factor. And these days, you take out a Vapor, you break it in a week, and it feels extremely comfortable. You take the Phantom Venoms, it almost feels broken in from the from the moment you take it out of the box, right? So So for me, it also goes to show how far synthetic boots have come, that you don't really have the Tiempo as that big of a, should we say, presence in the market anymore, because what the Tiempo did back in the days is being done by all the other synthetic boots now, if you know what I mean.
I think that's exactly the point. I think the gap between leather and synthetic has definitely been closed. Because if you go back 15 years, to compare even the top of the line synthetic boots, we're nowhere near, at least in my opinion, the quality that you could get from kangaroo leather.
Absolutely.
With kangaroo leather, you know what you're getting pretty much no matter what. But the synthetics have definitely caught up, and especially with the knitted uppers now, there are boots that legitimately feel like you're sliding on a pair of socks. So you don't. While I still think that kangaroo leather boots do offer the best overall comfort, if you're looking for that soft feel, you can still achieve a very comfortable fit without ever having to wear a leather boot on your foot.
Definitely. But with that said, my favorite boots on the market currently are mostly leather boots. And that's a funny thing, right? Because even though synthetic boots have become so much better over the last couple of years, I would still point to the Mizuno Wave Cup Legends and the Copa 19 Pluses and the Puma 1-1 leathers. I mean, they're just so good. Still leather boots, because leather technology is also following the trend of innovation, and they're using some of the stuff that makes synthetic boots so good in leather as well. So I think it's a very interesting discussion that we could probably go on about for a full episode if we wanted to. But I think you're right. It's probably marketing and also the evolution of and the improvement of synthetic boots that plays a big factor here.
Yeah, I think the marketing has a lot to do with it in terms of pros not wearing leather boots. But if by chance you are watching this video and you've never worn a pair of leather boots, what are you doing? You need to try them out. Because I think there's so many people out there that are just, they view it as kind of an old school thing. And like you said, leather boots have come a very long way. Mizuno Morelia Neo 2, super underrated. If you want that softness, but still want the tightness and responsiveness, a Mercurial-esque type experience, that's definitely one to check out.
Exactly. And okay, leather boots can be a little more expensive, but I mean, you know what you're getting. You're getting super high level comfort, you're getting performance, you're getting everything, and they are getting lighter and lighter. So I feel it's, if you've been watching any of our channels for the last couple of years, you'll know that leather boots are worth giving a go. Let's just leave it at that, right?
For sure.
Okay, so next question here is from Jason Todd. If you compare Adidas AG boots to Nike AG boots, which have slightly higher studs, which would be a better option? And I think what we don't know from the guy who's asking here is, what are you going to use them for? Which surface are you playing on? Because I think the Nike AG studs, the AG Pro, has been inspired by FG boots, right? So it's basically an FG pattern, an FG outsole that's been modified to be used on AG pitches, whereas the AG version from Adidas is more like specifically made for AG pitches, if you know what I mean. There are more studs, they're slightly smaller, so they don't drag as much, whereas you can actually also use the AG Pro stud pattern from the Nike boots on, I would say, most normal FG pitches.
Yeah, the problem with the Adidas AG stud patterns is just availability. Like, the amount of options you have for a straight AG Adidas boot is almost nothing most of the time, right? Where not to say that AG Pro from Nike is as readily available, more so in Europe than in North America, but I think for just if it's straight up AG use, I think Nike has probably the best AG stud pattern out there. I really like it, at least.
I agree.
And then I guess the nice thing about Adidas as a brand too is pretty much their FG stud patterns are also technically FG AG, so you can get away with using them on natural grass and artificial grass. But that's not to say you couldn't do that with the AG Pro stud pattern from Nike either. I mean, Neymar's been wearing the AG Pro stud pattern since the World Cup. So
exactly,
it's definitely wearable.
And I actually think that Adi, they released this FG AG, and I might be wrong here, but I think they actually scratched the whole FGAG thing, and now most of their, at least their high level boots, are purely FG models. Although you still have, I think, some of the models were FGAG and then they just became FG again. Although I'm not entirely sure, but I think they actually reverted to FG stop patterns, and then now they have dedicated AG boots. But I think it's a matter of what you want and where you play. Because for me, if you play on 3G pitches, 3D turf pitches, which are they're a little older, I would probably go with the Addy outsole because it has several more studs and they're slightly smaller. But if you play on 4G and also occasionally wear them on FG pitches, I would go with the Nike AG outsole because it's simply more versatile to me. And it feels like wearing an FG outsole with the security of an AG outsole for me.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand about AG. They think AG stud patterns are kind of a waste of money. And most people wear FG stud patterns on artificial grass. They have no problems ever. But
if you get problems,
you're gonna find those people that have suffered severe knee or ankle injuries due to that cling having too much grip with an FG stud pattern, or the crazy people that wear soft ground boots on artificial grass.
It happens. I don't know why it happens, man. It's like, and okay, if you're out there and you do it, stop immediately. It's the most dangerous thing you can do to your joints and your knees. It's actually stupid to do it. I understand why you would do it because soft ground boots they give you a bit of extra grip, and you might think it's good on FG pitches or muddy FG pitches. So why not use it on AG as well? I mean, don't do it. It's actually stupid.
On this topic, just because I get asked about it all the time, can we just clarify to people that just because you have soft ground boots that have a mixed sole that you can remove the metal studs and screw in some plastic ones, that does not make them AG boots. No. It does not even make them FG boots. No. They're still soft ground boots. Only wear them on soft ground, please.
Yes, And no, AG boots aren't a waste of money. If I was really tight on money and I could only buy one pair of boots, I would probably go out and buy a pair of Nike AG Pro boots, because you can use them both on AG, keep the warranty, keep your legs safe, but also use them, as Neymar does, on most grass pitches that aren't SG ready, so to speak.
Yeah, I think from Nike, that's the best way to go if you want something that's usable on everything.
Exactly. All right, moving on to the next question here is Gus, not Buzz, asking Josh, how is your cat Mo? Haven't seen anything of him for a while. I missed the little guy. So do I. Where's your cat, man?
He's good. He's annoying, but he's good. If you follow me on Instagram, SR4U_Josh, he makes it my way on Instagram, I would say roughly once a week.
Usually sitting on your legs in the morning.
Yeah, usually so. Yeah, that's kind of his morning routine. I get up, start answering some comments on YouTube, and then he somehow squeezes his way in the place of my laptop, and that ends. Yeah. So if I don't answer your questions, that's the reason why. It's his fault.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But otherwise, he's good. He's good. No complaints.
Sounds good, man. On to the next one here. Hi, guys. 2 questions here. Do you ever think Nike would discontinue/change the name of the Tiempo and the Mercurial lines? Because they seem to be adding Phantom to everything now. And number 2, I saw some pictures of Eden Hazard and some Tiempos at training. Do you think Nike would switch a big name player like that to the Tiempos and to give them more advertising power for the potential new Tiempo Legend 8? Be great to hear your thoughts. So 2 questions here. Do you think they're going to discontinue Tiempo and Mercurial, and would we see someone like Eden Hazard in Tiempo? We kind of went over it, but just give me your thoughts quickly.
Mercurial, definitely not. No. I think that if there's one line of football boots that will probably exist forever, it's that one. Uh-huh. Tiempo, while it's been around for a very long time, does Tiempo predate Mercurial?
Oh yeah, by 4 years.
Technically, it does, right?
Tiempo came out in '94 and is seen as like the first. It's seen as like the birth of Nike football. They made football boots back from '78, I think, but they were rubbish. The Nike was the first football boot that came out from the brand, and it was, they don't really acknowledge those when they look at their football boot history. So the Tiempo was kind of the first, and then Mercurial obviously came in '98. So and that's also why I think the Tiempo is gonna stay in some sort of capacity, even if they drop it from the, should we say, the main silos. It's probably, I would assume it could take over from the Premier, just to keep the name around.
That's what I was just gonna say. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped the Tiempo as a flagship line, but then it would probably be Tiempo Premier, just to maintain that name somewhere, because it is very Nike to keep those classic names within the brand, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Tiempo name holds a lot of weight with the younger generation anymore.
Probably doesn't, but maybe it was the same with the Predator, right? Maybe Tiempo needs a bit of maybe it needs some time off. Just some time for people to get excited to have the Tiempo back. Because now, is there going to be a Tiempo Legend 8? There might. I mean, it would make sense. But, even if there wasn't, would that many people care? And would it generate hype, just like Adi did with the Predator when it comes back? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it has more to do with the product. But at the same time, we look at Nike now, their last 2 models have been name changes.
Yeah.
They've been, I think realistically, they've been carryovers. Like you could easily call the Phantom Vision the Magista Obra 3.
No, that's fair.
And you could easily call the Phantom Venom the Hypervenom Phantom 4.
Yes.
I don't think that the name did not impact what the final product ended up being.
No.
But I would not put it past Nike to call the Tiempo something else. Hopefully it's not a Phantom. but they seem to be on a streak right now, so we'll see what happens with that.
But also, are we going to see someone like Eden Hazard, now that he wore Tiempos, which I think must have been due to some sort of small nickel he's had, that he just wanted pure comfort? Personally, I would say no. I don't see them throwing big players into the Tiempo right now, especially seeing if you look at the marketing, it's Phantom and it's Mercurial. They're not even advertising or marketing the Tiempo that much anymore. It's kind of gone from whatever material there is out there. So it would be shooting themselves in the foot big time if they all of a sudden threw Hazard in it and don't really communicate the boot. I don't see that happening.
No, me neither. I think I got a lot of messages about Hazard wearing Tiempos in training. And Hazard seems to be one of those guys that messes around with his boots in training quite a lot. Yeah. He plays with his boots untied. He does all kinds of stuff. And I'm surprised we don't see more pros just messing around with boots in training.
I would do that.
Honestly, I think that situation was just somebody else's boots that he decided to wear for training.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
I agree.
I don't think there was much to that at all.
Nah, I agree.
There was a time a few years ago, well, maybe longer than a few years ago, but I remember Cristiano Ronaldo was wearing Tiempos in training for some reason.
He was, yeah. But I think it's really a matter of, either they forget their boots at home or, they got a small niggle, so maybe they lost a toenail, so they need a bit more room or comfort around that part. We see pros cutting their boots, all these sorts of weird things that we can't really relate to. If you play football every single day, you can have so many reasons for suddenly switching into something that's a little more comfortable, a little more protective than a super thin Mercurial Vapor. That's not the most, should we say, comfortable or stable thing in the world.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that as a pro, getting a blister that's a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Like that impacts you because you don't have the opportunity to really rest for 3 weeks and let that blister heal.
No.
So you're just on it, and it's going to take probably 3 months for that blister to heal just because you're constantly irritating it.
Yeah. Well, you do also have world-class physios, and if you've ever been to a world-class physio, you know that they can work magic with all these things. But I agree, like blisters is, if you probably all had a blister, and you know how it's terrible to play with. So yeah, that. I think comfort is the main reason for Hazard switching. You're just having fun, basically.
That's what I think.
Yeah. So moving on to a question from Jonathan Magallanes, however you pronounce that. JayMike, since you work for a company like Unisport, when you review boots, are you allowed to say bad things about Adidas, Nike, Puma, and others when reviewing their products, since you have to sell their products in the company you work for? And I think it's a very good and very fair question because, you know, it's only natural to question should we say, the credibility of someone in my position, because I work for someone who has to make a living selling the products, right? If I go out and destroy a product, would we sell any? But ever since we started this Unisport Web TV thing, there's always been this idea that unless we keep it real with you guys, no one's gonna bother watching us anyways, because then we'll just be like a prolonged marketing arm for the brands. And we don't want to do that. We want to have our own identity. And then getting someone like myself in, who's, you know, I have a strong opinion about boots, and if I'm not allowed to speak my mind, then, you know, what would I be doing there for the last 10 years? So, you know, the mantra is that we can say what we want. Thankfully, it's good these days for most boots, but, you know, if something doesn't work, we say it, because we want to keep it real with you guys. And we believe that, you know, the best way of giving people out there buying a good buying experience is to pass on what we know about boots to you, so you can. Does it make sense? I mean, you're in a different position than me.
Oh, I never say bad things. I'm No, but I think you're right. I think it's gotten to a point where there aren't too many. There might be dumb products that come out, but there aren't too many terrible products that come out, especially at the top end level. If you're paying $200+ for a pair of boots, 99% of the time you're getting a pretty solid product.
Yeah. That's the thing. And of course, there's going to be niggles with every product, but that's what I guess consumers also know these days. There's no such thing as the perfect product, and we're going to point it out. You're going to point that out ourselves. We're going to, yeah, okay, point taken. There is one problem, the price though. See? But
yeah, no, you're right.
That's just how it goes. So it's a very fair question, but we do our best to always keep it real. And even my colleagues, if I've, you know, overlooked something, they always tell me, Jay, yo, bro, be real. Just say it. So I say it. So yeah, that's how that goes.
But you know what? I think even you work a lot closer with the brands than I do. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the brands do appreciate the honesty on some things. You know, because I don't think you can question the credibility of someone's opinion, but when you have effectively no opinion by just being overly positive, then it's not a review. And I don't know, just from me watching your channel, I don't get that vibe at all.
Well, that's good.
Everything seems genuine.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, because in the beginning, you know, some people also asked, you know, how affected are we? And of course it hurts because, you know, this is what I care about. This is, you know, you probably know the feeling, right? This is what we do. This is what we care about is communicating our experience to people out there to make the best decision in buying football boots. That's basically what we're here for. We're not here to, you know, be famous or whatever. It's because we like to share our thoughts and experiences because we've been in a fortunate situation to try the products. And it's just, I always find that whenever you say something nice, but you also counter it with what's not so nice, well, people can figure out for themselves what they, you know, what's important to them. And then go on. Mm-hmm. So it's always the best way for people to decide if you say good and bad stuff. It doesn't work the other way.
That's the thing. That's what I really try to focus on in my reviews. And I think you guys do pretty well the same thing. Is you can lay out all the facts, you can lay out what your experience was, but from there it's really up to the consumer to decide, okay, is this what I want based on that information? I don't think it's up to us to say this is the boot you should buy no matter what, because that's just not how it should work. You have to educate yourself and make a decision on your own. Exactly. It's the best way to do it. But on the topic of this, because I've never really been able to ask anybody this, but you will be in the same position as me. Do you ever feel pressure when a new boot comes out and it's kind of like, it's good, but it's not as good as you hoped it would be, and then you got to give that opinion to the world that everyone's anticipating, and you're kind of like nervous about the opinion you're going to give?
Initially, you know, back in the day, yeah, I definitely, it was difficult to how to swing that or wing it, how you say. But these days, boots come out thick and fast, and it's really become a thing you just get used to. That whenever a new product comes out, okay, you're excited as well, but by the time you're doing the review, at least for me, I've had the time with the boots, and you probably know that as well. You've had enough time with the boots to really make up your mind, and once you've made up your mind, there's no swaying it, so to speak. And you might come out and say, okay, this is. It usually goes like this: that it's a very good product in this and this regard, but it also could be better in that regard. And I understand what you mean, but I think it comes with experience in doing so many reviews and trying so many products that we have, that it becomes a little bit more of an everyday thing to even deliver critique to the next big thing out there.
Yeah, sometimes I think there's a lot of pressure to my issue is I don't want to say something that I can't take back.
No, true.
Because what often happens with me is I find that my preferences tend to change as the life cycle of the boot goes.
Uh-huh.
Where I'll really like a boot at the start, and then I won't like it as much 3 months later, and then I don't want to I can't really take back anything that I said prior. So I have to really be careful, because so many people do wait on our opinions or information on sizing or fit, and it has to be right on point. Otherwise, it's not good. You'll get called out.
in that sense, I understand what you mean. That when you try something, you don't want to be, and maybe it's such a new thing that you yourself get too excited. Compared to what you should be, you get more excited as a fanboy, if you know what I mean.
That's exactly it. You don't want to get caught up in the hype.
Yeah, exactly.
While
and
you're
sometimes
reviewing
you
the boot.
do get caught up in the hype, and when you've used it for some time, you figure out, okay, maybe it wasn't as good as I even thought myself. Sometimes I've slapped on a boot and thought, this is it. This is the one. And then I come back to something I'm familiar with, and I actually figure out, maybe I still prefer this a little bit more. So it is a fine balance of buying the hype yourself and just, not reacting to your first impression all the time.
That's true.
Because
I think comparing back to other boots is a great way to, I think, ground yourself in terms of how good this boot actually is. Because typically if a new product comes out and it is actually good, it'll be much better than you think it is initially, until you go back and okay, here's what it's competing against. This stuff's also pretty good.
Yeah.
Let me take a few steps back.
Exactly. But it's also a fine line. This is going very much into the whole reviewing thing, but it's a very fine line of also, if there is something that I particularly don't like about a new boot, it's also a fine line, because when I reviewed the Phantom Vision, it's not a boot for my taste, but I realized, from everything I've tried playing, I realized that, okay, this is going to appeal to a lot of people. So what do I say? Do I say that I don't think this is, I'm not going to come back to the Phantom Visions on my own and play with this, but I do appreciate that, other people whose opinion I respect, like you, for example, they're going to come back to it. There's going to be a lot of people who like. So it's where do we stand on this? And I ended up actually saying mostly nice things about it, because I understand why people would like it. I just don't like it that much. It doesn't make sense what I'm saying.
No, I know exactly. What you're saying is that when you do I think a proper review has to be a healthy mixture, but also have these two elements separate. That this is my personal preference, and this is an analytical breakdown of what exactly is happening here, where this is good and this is bad for these objective reasons. And a boot, like you said, like a Phantom Vision, you don't really care for it. It's objectively a very good product in terms of what it has going for it, but it's not your cup of tea.
Exactly.
And I think that's important to communicate in a review. There's plenty of boots, like the Predator 18 plus, 19 plus, as an example. Not a bad boot by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
Probably the best laceless boot if you're looking for that sock-like feel. But I don't really care to wear it. it's just not my thing. But plenty of people, that's their favorite boot on the market right now. And I think I make that pretty clear when I do any kind of product review, is I make sure that if I'm going to say that I don't like something, I'm going to be very clear as to why I don't like it. Yeah. Same thing goes if I really like it.
Yeah, to not kind of exclude people who would like whatever it is we don't like. I think it's a fine balance, but I think in the end, at least you do quite well on but I've been watching your reviews for like ever since you started, man. So it's, and maybe that's also a good thing to watch other people's reviews, right? So to not only to see what works for other people and realize that is not only your opinion that is the final ultimate thing. And we need to realize that, but the viewers also need to realize this, because even though you might watch my review and I say one thing, you watch your review and you might say the same thing, but just because we say it doesn't mean it's the final solution or the final verdict of this product. We might hate it and they might love it. I mean, just because we've worn several hundred pairs of football boots doesn't mean that we're the oracles, the gurus, whatever we say is the right thing, because we're just normal football players like everyone else.
No, but I like this conversation just to have, just to show people how much thought goes into sharing opinions. Oh, yeah. Because we have two very public opinions that a lot of people look to for buying advice. So while it might seem sometimes, at least me anyways, I can't really speak for Jay, but for me, I think a lot of people kind of just get this vibe where I'm just like blindly throwing out opinions sometimes. And trust me when I say that's never the case. Like the amount of thought that goes into everything I say in my videos, while I don't script anything, if I am recording a video and I say something that I feel is just a little bit off and not what I meant, I'll start over. Because I don't want to put out opinions that I don't 100% feel are accurate.
Respect, yeah. So. For me, it's the same. I script it, so I know, I can actually refine my thoughts and make it as clear as possible. But we also make considerably shorter videos than you do. We're not in the.
I'm more of a freestyler, a little bit harder than what you guys do.
Yeah, we're not in the 20.
More skill required on my end. So.
And with that, I think we're going to jump into the next question here. Do you think Puma should reintroduce the King silo?
Yes, if they do it right.
I was going to say that, actually. So, you shouldn't bring it back if it's just going to be some cheap. I mean, if they bring it back as a Nike Premier thing, I could kind of live with it. But I think they have something going for them with the one in the future right now. I don't think they need anything to come in and disrupt those two silos. So unless they can really blow them out of the water, yes. I mean, I don't think they should reintroduce the King, to be honest.
I think it'd be very tough for that. Well, let's say the last two Puma Kings were, I would say, fails. Mm-hmm.
They're not bad boots. They just didn't.
Aesthetically, I thought they were good looking boots. They weren't terrible to wear, but in comparison to the 11 Pros and the Tiempos of the time, it was a distant third place. I think the issue for them now is, one, the King name does not hold, I would say, any weight with the younger audience. No. And then two, I feel like they have, for the first time in a long time, kind of a nice balance in the marketing side of the Puma 1 and the Puma Future. So if they were to introduce a King, now they got to take a bunch of these players out of whatever they've been wearing and been marketing and then try to just start something new, which might be more trouble than it's worth.
And if you want a Puma King vibe, you can always go and buy the low-cut version of the Puma 1, which does feel a lot like a Puma King. I mean, yeah, it has a synthetic midfoot, but it doesn't really matter because the leather toe box is very soft and it's a brilliant boot. So,
those look unbelievable, by the way.
They look so good,
I really like
man.
how those look.
Oh. And even, just completely ruining this question, I also really love the look of the Future. It's a very, very cool looking pack, the Eclipse pack.
Yeah.
Just saying. Anyway, we got a few more questions here. From Derby Yank 13. Which boot line do you guys think should be brought back? For me personally, the Wave Ignitus, especially the 1s and the 2s. I would like the Wave Cups from Mizuno to be brought back. I'm just saying, that's probably the one I would like to see brought back the most. I would also like the Adidas X line to be changed back to the F50. But that's just nostalgia. Is that a word?
Yeah, that'd be a name thing.
Nostalgia.
I'm with him with the Wave Ignitus. I was as much as I think the Rebula is a really solid boot. I would so much rather have, and they kind of. I think Mizuno took the Wave Ignitus line maybe in the wrong direction when they went synthetic.
I agree.
Wave Ignitus 1 and 2 were definitely better than. Was it 3 and 4?
3 and 4, yeah. I think
they did 3 and 4.
3 and 4 was synthetic. There was just something about the leather. It had a Predator vibe, but then it also had this fantastic Mukai 10 panel. It was maybe a little bit of a gimmick, but it had some a really solid visual. Should we say visual guideline as to where you should hit the ball to shoot the knuckleball, and it gave you a very flat, powerful surface if you hit that. Basically, before I knew anything about shooting knuckleballs, I tried it, and I tried hitting the ball with that, and I actually got the movement. So it was
really?
Yeah, it was not every time, but it kind of worked. And I was surprised as well because back then I couldn't shoot for shit. So. Some will say I still can't.
I don't know if I have a bias, but I think I have a bias with the Wave Ignitus because that was the first Mizuno boot I ever wore.
Yeah.
And Mizuno in North America, let alone Canada, is just not something you ever see. And that's like it's one of the early, when I first started doing reviews, it's one of those boots that I really wanted to bring in because I'm like, how am I going to review boots if I've never worn Mizuno? It doesn't even make any sense.
No.
So I got them in and I love them. And in the early days, like it was expensive for me to bring everything in and try to do reviews on stuff. I was funding everything out of pocket. So what ended up happening is all those early boots that I've reviewed on the channel. If you go, a lot of people ask me how do they go see some of my older videos? If you go on any YouTube channel, go to the video section and then just change the sort order from oldest to newest, you can see exactly those older videos. I don't know why people don't know this. Either way, all those older boots, I would say 99% of them I don't have anymore because I had to sell off to buy new boots to review.
No.
So like all those old, like I had so much cool stuff that I just don't have anymore because I had to fund my reviewing career.
Oh, damn.
But the Wave Ignitus 1, because I like them so much, that's the one like OG boot from when I started this that I still have.
Is it on the rack behind you?
No.
Damn
it's
it,
not.
Josh.
It should be, actually.
It should
I
be.
definitely should.
Just don't replace it with the most beautiful boot you have back there, the Puma 1-1 City Packs. I'm just saying.
Oh no, they're don't worry. They have a nice spot on my floor right now.
No. Completely denied here. I would just say, coming from the Wave Ignitus into then the Morelia 2s and the Morelia 2 Neos and finally the Wave Cup Legends must have been an eye-opening experience for you because the Wave Ignitus was really comfortable, but the Morelia 2s are like, I don't know what you say.
It's a different experience. But on the topic of bringing back stuff, I'm still of the opinion that the Predator really needs to come back. That's still my opinion.
Yeah.
I'd still love, while I don't think it makes any sense at all, I'd still like an old school T90. I'm a big fan of the boots that nobody would want anymore. So
I think a T90 if Nike pulled an Addy and remade the T90 in a modern way, or even just gave the Phantom Venom like a Hyper Venom GX graphical touch up, something like that would be nice. I think that would go down well. And I also think we need to see a Predator with some rubber elements on at some point. I mean, it needs to happen. Even if it's just some wild special edition remake. I don't care. I just want it back. I think it would be nice. Although I do appreciate the Predator 18, 19 plus for what it is. I would just like to see it for nostalgia.
Yeah. But thinking about that question, I don't think there's actually too many styles of boots or boot lines that have been killed off that are even worth bringing back, to be honest.
True.
The one that kind of pops in my mind as being like unique was the Nitro Charge line.
Yeah.
Wasn't really my thing, but I could see why if you were a fan of that, you'd want something like that back. But other than that, nothing pops in my head as
To me, Nitro
important.
Charge was just incredibly. I didn't. It just didn't make any sense. It was just there. Okay, move on.
Yeah.
But that's. I mean, yeah. Okay, well, we have one more question left, and that is, what would you feel about a TechCraft K-leather version of the Phantom Vision? And I'm gonna let you answer first because I have a very short answer.
No.
No?
And no, I think no. Because it would totally screw up the whole feel of that boot. I'd like to, I mean, I would try it, but I just think that it would take, I think the appeal of the Phantom Vision is that it's, wait, did you say Venom or Vision?
Let's just see. Venom.
Oh, Venom. I thought you said Vision. Okay, Venom, yes.
Okay. I was scratching my head over here.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the Vision.
I'd also like to see a leather version of that, but that's just because I think it would make it better and more appealing to me. But yeah, I get your point.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, Phantom Venom in K leather. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Nike, make it happen, please. I'll take 1,000 pairs. It will be so good. I love the shape of the boot. Put the striking element on a K leather full foot. I mean, we would be talking proper Predator vibes here.
But how do they do that though? How do they do that? That's the thing. Like the construction of that whole striking element is within the Flyknit material. If it was all leather, I guess it would have to be like rubber stuck on top or sewn in somehow. Like the construction of the boot would have to be significantly different.
But haven't they just looking at the boot? It looks like they've just molded the, put the polyurethane elements on the Venom. Like they molded them and then they slapped them on.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't you do that with a leather boot as well?
I guess you could. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if
I think
would
I think there's complications with sticking
probably.
stuff to a natural material.
That's
right?
true, yeah. They would have to stitch him, and it would probably say, I mean, I'm just saying, if they can make it happen, I'm willing to take a few pairs. I would love for it to happen.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Now, the final thing here is, Lammy Boss said you guys should be in the same room. So, Josh, are you willing to fly to Copenhagen every time we do this?
Once a week. It's not in the budget yet, but a couple more episodes from now, we could probably do that.
Yeah, the thing is that I'm in Copenhagen and Josh is sitting in Canada, so it's a little bit difficult. We're speaking over FaceTime right now, so while it would help having us in the same room, this is kind of the way we have to do it right now.
Yeah. I mean it's only an 8-hour flight though, Jay.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. But let's close down the Q&A section here, which actually took up most of the episode time. But we just have a little bit of time to discuss what you saw on the thumbnail of the video, and I'll let you take it from here.
So I figured we should talk about with how technological the football boot game has become.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about some boot tech fails, because there are plenty of them.
Yes.
I will start. I still think one of the biggest fails in the boot tech industry had to be the F50 tune-it system as a whole. I don't know what your experience was growing up, if you ever had a pair, but I had the F50.6 tune-it when it first came out. Mm-hmm. It was one of the first high-end boots I ever had. Mm-hmm. The blue ones with the neon yellow and white stripe thing. And I was so stoked on those boots. I thought I was so cool. I thought they were the coolest thing ever. And I remember now thinking back as a kid, like I remember putting them on for the first time and thinking, these kind of feel terrible. Because before that, I think I had Predator Manias that were like on deep discount. And those were amazing. Yeah. Then I went into these blue plastic, bulky, square toe, weird at 50 things. They felt terrible. And then what ended up happening is I wore them a couple times, and all of a sudden my heel was like, I could barely put any weight on my heel. And I ended up getting a bruised heel from just stud pressure with that boot.
Wow.
Plus they were super it was just a terrible boot. I basically what ended up happening is I wore them for like a month, and then I think I ended up selling them off because my feet couldn't handle it.
Well, you were one of the lucky ones that you only had a bruised heel, because a lot of people's soles actually snapped. When you were screwing in the studs, you got cracks in the if you screwed them in too tightly or too hard, you got cracks, or they might just simply snapped. So I had to return a whole lot of tuned boots back in the day. So I returned it and got the new generation, and it snapped. And I never really liked that. What I also want to mention is probably for me the biggest culprit ever. It's the infamous. I forget the name right now. It was called the NikeSENSE stud.
Sense stud.
The NikeSENSE stud, yeah. On the Superfly 2s and 3s. And in theory, it was a good idea, because you have this stud that it can move a little bit. On the insole, there is a little tap. So whenever you put pressure on that, it pushes the stud a millimeter or even 2 millimeters, they said back in the day. So it can go extra deep into the ground and give you better traction, and thus make you more responsive. And I tried sitting there, pushing my finger down on the insole to see if the stud moved, and I couldn't see anything. Like, you never felt the thing, you couldn't see anything. I don't think it even worked.
It was one of those things. I remember I got a pair. That's another one of the, I think it might have been like one of my first 5 videos was a review of the Superfly 3.
Uh-huh.
And like, at the time, that was like a $400 boot.
Yeah,
it was very, very expensive for me to bring that in. But I felt the need to get it because I was like, I have to review the new Superfly. Everyone cares about that boot.
Yeah.
And I remember taking them out of the box, and I'd never had them in my hands before, and looking at the Sense stud. And I don't know if you remember the ad. I don't remember if it was Cristiano Ronaldo or Ibrahimovic at the time, but it was like a side view of him running, and you could see the stud going into the ground, and it was like claws extending. It was just like an animated picture. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I always thought, wow, that makes so much sense to have the stud like extend into the ground and give you that extra traction. And then you're right, you take it out of the box and you try to move it, and you're like, what is this? It's stuck.
I can never erase this image from my head of the claw coming out of the boot, thinking this is the coolest thing ever, and just being so disappointed when I was sat with that $280 boot in my hands, thinking it's stiff, and it doesn't work. So. Yeah, that was.
What's worse, Jay? What's worse, the stud not moving, or the pure pain of wearing the stiffest boots possible on your feet?
I would say it would go with the latter. It was one of the worst Nike boots I've ever worn. The Superfly 2. The 3s were a little bit better because the toe box wasn't as high, but it's a close race.
Yeah.
It's just both of them were terrible. I'm gonna go with the next one. I'm just gonna show it on camera here and tell people only listening that there is a zipper on it, and I'll let you do the talking.
I've never seen those before. They seem slightly unfamiliar. That's like, I put that in one of my videos about boot tech fails, and some people got a little bit upset with me saying, it's all, your only argument is that it's a zipper, and my counter argument is exactly, it's a zipper. Why? We've had how many boots at this point that have had a lace cover with no zipper? I don't know, like 1 million of them. The zipper exists on that boot simply to just seal up the lace cover. And I guess it's nice that they give you the easy access to the lacing system. But the fact that passed, I don't know how many levels of executives at Under Armour, and they said, put it in production, people are going to love it. And it released as a product, it's mind-blowing.
I have no words. I mean, I liked the idea initially, and I remember making a video trying to convince myself and Jolter, who was also very skeptical of this, that maybe it was going to work. And then a few weeks passed, and I actually tried it, and I didn't like it. I was so unfortunate to actually, strike the ball and hit it with the zipper, and it hurt badly. So I'm not, and it's a shame because, the rest of the boot is actually relatively nice. It has a super thin, soft upper and a nice outsole. So, I mean, just kind of ruined everything for me.
Yeah, I guess if there's one nice thing to say, it's that the durability of that zipper is impressive.
That's because no one wears it, man.
That's been no, it's been thoroughly tested on my end. I can assure you. But yeah, another boot tech fail. I would say, actually, you know what? I have them. Let me just get them.
I am waiting, very, very eager. Okay.
I'm calling this a fail, and I think this is an interesting fail because it's a boot that was ahead of its time. This is the Lotto Zero-Gravity, the original one, the first, I guess, mainstream laceless boot. I'm not sure if it's the very, very first one. But it's the first one that got anyone's attention.
It was.
And this is a boot that was a fail. Jay, have you ever tried putting these on?
Oh yeah, back then. You also got a shoehorn, but still, with that shoehorn, it was impossible.
Yeah, like your fingers are gonna bleed by the time you get these on your feet, and your sock. You know how many pairs of socks? I never had a pair when they were current. I just have this pair for my collection, and I remember I made the first video I made on them. I ended up tearing the socks that I was wearing as I was putting them on because the opening was so small, and this rubber that they have at the heel and on the front that kind of makes the laceless system. It's just so sticky, and it's one of the most difficult boots ever.
To be fair, it actually had better lockdown than what you see on many laceless boots these days because they actually have to allow you to put your foot inside the boot. Lotto didn't really think about that back then, apparently.
Yeah.
So I thought it was okay, but I never really wore it again after reviewing it because it was such a pain to put on. So that was...
It's just crazy to think like this was at a time when Lotto was considered one of the top dogs in the game. Like, they were really legitimately popular at this time, and this boot, I think, really hurt them.
Now, but the funny thing is that Lotto are kind of back. You know, they took a bit of a hiatus. I don't know if you've seen this. I'm holding the Lotto Solista 200s.
I have seen them,
and I just tried them on. They're super light. They really thin, very flexible upper, extremely comfortable heel, and they just feel good. And I think they're like 200 euros or something, maybe even less. I think we have them on Unisport for less than 200 euros. Don't kill me if we don't, but they're like very much value for money. So it's like for me, Lotto are kind of getting back in the game.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's going to be tough for them to gain any kind of market share, but I think there's a place for these Italian brands like Lotto, like Diodora, to try and, I guess, recreate some of the stuff that they used to make that was really good. Obviously, Lotto's going for a much more modern approach with that, but
should they?
These brands make good stuff.
Should they bring back the Zero Gravity to compete with Adi, or do you think it's like, is it too many years ago that it was their thing?
I think it's too little, too late at this point. But I also think you could probably get some pretty good marketing hype if you had some kind of campaign based around being first. If you could do that, if somehow you could call out Adidas for copying you without getting sued,
yeah,
I think you could cause some chaos there on social media.
No fakers, creators only. Let's see how that goes. On the topic of Adi, I also brought one of my favorite Adidas boots ever, the Predator Power Swerve, but I didn't like it because of the gimmick. I loved it because it was a fantastic football boot. I don't have it in this boot, but it had the what was it called? The power poles.
Tungsten.
Yeah, the tungsten powder in it.
powder.
So basically, it was this tungsten powder that was sat in this here translucent box underneath the insole, and every time you shifted your foot, the weight would shift to give you more weight behind your shot. And you felt it when you moved your foot, but I never saw any, clear improvement in the power of my shot. You didn't really feel a difference when you took a shot. So,
yeah, it was. I always thought that was a cool idea, and that was a time in Adidas marketing because that's the control variant of the Power Swerve.
Yes.
No, that particular colorway.
Yes.
So I remember at that time Adidas would put out different variations, and they'd say plus 3% more power, plus 2% more swerve. Like they would actually give these like numbers on like how much better you would be because of these boots, which I always thought was hilarious. But I remember because they first introduced the whole Power Pulse thing, the weighted insole on the Absolute, the model before.
True,
it was just
yeah.
a weight at that point, not any kind of movable sand metal stuff. But I remember getting those as a kid and immediately thinking, like, why on earth would I want to add weight to my boot? It made no sense to me. So I immediately took it out and I just reverted to the lightweight one. Oh, those are beautiful.
They're fantastic
Look
boots.
at those.
Fantastic boots, man. Fantastic boots. But I've also brought out the last one on my list, at least, the Lotto Warriors, because they had this technology, as they call it, on the heel. It's basically a hole, so the heel kind of collapses and is there to relieve pressure on your heel. And Warrior said it was there to get you out help you out, or something like offload you in sticky situations, something like completely ridiculous. And it is ridiculous because they called this the glory hole. I mean,
Okay, I'm going to give you some incredible Canadian insight right here. Because Warrior, while they're owned by New Balance, and they were from the beginning, Warrior made its claim to fame is lacrosse, and then it made its way into hockey. I'm not as familiar with the lacrosse stuff, but the hockey stuff I am. When they started making hockey sticks, all of the names and all of the tech had these ridiculous names like this. So, like, they would have, like, you could get a hockey stick, for example, that had like a sticky grip along the shaft, and they called it nipple grip. So when the boots came out, and like all these crazy names were like, people were like outraged by what they were calling this stuff. I was like, this is classic Warrior. They're not like that anymore. But at the time, that's exactly what the brand was all about. It was kind of like they had this shock value in how they would name and design the boots. And that did really well for them in the hockey market and the lacrosse market. Obviously, for football boots, it didn't work out quite so well, but hockey players love that kind of stuff.
And it's not necessarily a gimmick as per se, but I just brought it because it's so incredibly stupid. I understand a lot of they had a lot of references on the Screamer and the Gambler and all that stuff. But as you said with the Under Armour Spotlights and the zipper, how did that ever pass so many people at Warrior thinking, this is a great name, let's go with that? Come on. Would you buy a pair as a parent for your kid with the technology on called Glory Hole? I mean, and for those of you people who don't know what a glory hole is, scratch the last 2 minutes of this conversation. It never happened.
Yeah, don't look it up.
Yeah. But I guess that was my last boot. Do you have any more technologies that never really worked?
That really comes to mind. I'm sorry to pick on Lotto, but I always thought that the twist stud that they had, twist and go, that wasn't bad. People were just afraid of it, and I think it affected their sales in a major way. I'm still, and I don't want to be an Adidas hater, but I think the glitch, while it's an evolution of the F50, it's a great concept in terms of how it actually does work, and they don't hurt your feet like the old F50s did. I still think from a conceptual standpoint, it's just a worse version of what they were making with the Pure Speed.
I agree. I don't.
So like, what's the point?
Yeah, I don't necessarily see the idea behind glitch, but yeah, it's a nice concept, but it just doesn't really work that well, in my opinion. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, I think what makes a tech fail on a boot an actual fail is when they start to overcomplicate things. When, like, you can make a boot that has a lot of tech in it, but still maintain, I guess, a streamlined, moderately simple type of design scheme. But when you just take things too far, more often than not, you end up with a fail.
Exactly. I totally agree on that. But I mean, thankfully we don't get that many tech fails these days, so it seems to be a little bit of a thing in the past, I would argue.
Yeah, brands have to be way more careful now. They got guys like me out here calling them out. So.
And apparently not Unisport, because we have to sell the product, so we're completely biased.
Yeah, you guys are much more careful.
But I think that concludes the list, and I think also for the sanity of people watching and listening, it should conclude this episode of the podcast. So we make sure that we have a lot more stuff to talk about in the coming episodes of the Boot Nerds podcast. So remember, guys, that if you have any questions that you would like us to answer in the next Q&A episode, you can leave them in the comment section right down below if you are on YouTube. If you're not, go to YouTube, leave the comments right there. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the Boot Nerds podcast channel to get a little notification bling on your phone whenever we drop a new episode. And also, if you want to...
Will it actually make that sound?
No, but you get the point.
Oh.
Also, you disrupted my end thing here.
I know. Now you're gonna have to like see when I say my outro, it's like I don't even think about it anymore. It just automatically comes out.
Yeah, I know.
So I was curious if you're gonna be able to just continue on from the middle.
Yes, I can.
Oh, you are? Okay.
But you also want to make sure to check out old Josh's videos where he makes a lot of videos, talks a lot about boots. Click right over there on the screen. You can also follow me at Unisport. We also talk a lot about boots, talk to players, teach you skills, all that jazz. Click right over there to go and follow us. And then just go have fun, leave some questions, and I think we should be signing off. Cheerio.
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks again, C6 Agility. 10% off, coupon code BOOTNERDS, c6agility.com, link in the description. Go check it out. Thanks for watching, guys.
Cheers.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.